District Agriculture Association, Mother Lode Fairgrounds Board of Directors meeting is now called to order. Please be informed that any member of the public has a right and is invited to participate in this public meeting and may address the board either during the public comment portion and or during the discussion of any particular item listed on the agenda. Items listed on this agenda may be considered in any order at the discretion of the chair. All items so listed may be considered for action. Any item not listed on the agenda will not be discussed or considered by the board. Tom, would you lead us in the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, roll call of the board.
Marion Paris.
Marge Kerlick.
Missy Marino.
Albert Barretto.
Dan Brown.
Tom Miller.
Jen Costa.
Mickey Rucker.
Peggy Lee.
All board members are present, and there is a quorum. Is there any members of the audience that would like to introduce themselves?
Start with staff.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, staff.
Stacy Dodge. Michelle Keefe.
Dennis is there. Anybody else?
Yeah, Kathy.
Kathy Solid.
Dennis.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, is there any members of the public that would like to introduce themselves?
Oh, I'm sorry. Introduce.
Introduce. Okay. Hearing none. Public comment is the right granted to the public. It is reserved for items that are not listed on the agenda, but under this board's jurisdiction. Please be informed that public participation under public comment will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker, and in accordance with state law, the board will not comment or otherwise consider such public comment items for business until and unless such items have been properly agendized at a future meeting. Bart, did you want to speak?
Yes. Can I go through for a few minutes? Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I'm sorry, it's fine.
That's
That's out of order, I'm sure.
Okay.
Hi, and thank you, Bart. Good evening, my name's Mike Albrecht, and I appreciate the chance to address the board, and thank you for that. And I'd like to start by saying I'm fully supportive of the proposal for a local committee that will help choose future Tuolumne County Fair Board directors. I think that's a real good idea. But I'm really here for one main reason. And that's to say I'm very disappointed that certain members of your board and your board leadership have created a working environment that is so poor that it's led to the resignation of our Fair Board manager, Stacy Dodge. Losing Stacy is a great disservice to our county. Stacy Dodge is one of the finest citizens our county has, and I feel very qualified to make that statement. Stacy comes from a great family. I knew her dad, Joe Martin, very well. He was Citizen of the Year, Logger of the Year, County Grand Marshal, helped start Rotary clubs, and given untold awards and money to help this county. Her mom, Joyce Martin, who served on this very board, helped Joe run a successful business and at its height employed over 100 people in this county. I tell you this because Stacy is a perfect combination of her parents. She's hardworking, she's loyal, she's tenacious, and she has a heart of gold. Since 1993, Stacy and I have been business partners, owning and operating Sierra Resource Management. I can assure you that over the 30 years, plus years, that Stacy's been involved with her parents' business and with Sierra Resource Management, that she has lived through more ups and downs than you folks will ever face on this fair board. During that time, my wife Vicki and I have gotten to know Stacy very, very well. We admire her work ethic, we trust her judgment, so much so that she's always been the one that we put on that line that says emergency contact for us or our kids. As Fair Board Manager, Stacy has brought all those great qualities to a job that is all about service. Or as Rotary puts it, service above self. I don't know much about Stacy's duties here, but I know Stacy and this board and our county fair have gotten a lot more than what's in that job description. Stacy Dodge is trusted, respected, and admired by this whole community, and we are proud to call her our Fair Board Manager. Under your watch and leadership, she's decided to resign. With that, our county suffers a great loss. Thank you for the chance to speak my mind.
Next. I'm Bart Bloom. I'm with the Friends of the Mother Lode Fairgrounds. I'd like to make 2 comments. First, I'd like to welcome Albert Barreco and Nikki Rucker to the board. And I wish you the best of luck in your service. Secondly, I'd like to point out some positive things that's happened in the last few years. We've got a new restroom down by the grandstand area. Fencing has been added to help in crowd management at the grandstands. The refreshment bar at the grandstand area has been remodeled. Bleachers have been painted. The old barn area has been painted and is more usable for other events. There's been Wi-Fi improvements around the area. Last year there was a successful 3-day fair, and the fair website has been updated to reflect this year's fair. So with that, I'd just like to thank the people involved. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sue Moore, and I'm the president of the Tuolumne County Small Livestock Exhibitors Association. And I don't know if you're familiar with what we do. We are a registered nonprofit, and I sign a contract as president of Small Livestock Association with the fair to run the small livestock auction that's on Sunday afternoon. So we are in the process of getting ready for that. We're also responsible for the processing and the buyer delivery. But besides this, what we call the regular small livestock auction on Sunday afternoon, there is also a benefit auction. And I know last year there were some questions about what happens to the money from the benefit auction. The regular auction, the money is returned to the sellers, the youth exhibitors, less 10% for the contingency fund and $15 for the next year's buyer tickets. In the small livestock benefit auction, exhibitors can also sell another animal, and that money is donated to the Small Livestock Association. We have 2 different high school graduate scholarships, and then the rest of the money essentially is used for purchasing supplies and support and equipment for the small livestock shows at the Motherwood Fair. This year we were told that there's going to be a big increase in the numbers of meat birds coming. So was it a week ago, our volunteers went out, the maintenance staff pulled out all the rabbit and poultry cages, and we power washed the cages and cleaned and disinfected all the little cups that go in them, and counted up holes and what was usable, and we're purchasing 2 new banks of poultry cages and having the frames built, buying all new cage cups for them and for some of the rabbit cages. So that's about $3,000. Our benefit auction last year brought in $5,000, and we're probably going to put that much and more back into the small livestock shows at the fair this year. We also purchased the grand Champion, Reserve, Best of Show, Reserve, of Show, all those rosettes for the small livestock shows. Put in a thank you ad in the paper. We're responsible to take all the animals down to process, and then we're on the schedule now. Last year was the first time to rent a refrigerated truck to bring them all back. So, and we do our buyer delivery at the Sonora Elks Lodge on Monday, the day after fair. So all the market poultry is delivered fresh, not frozen, to the buyers. Anyway, we encourage you to come down to the livestock area on Sunday afternoon and see the small livestock auction. I'm also a member of the Junior Livestock Auction Committee, and part of my volunteer job with those two groups is I help coordinate all the awards. So all the livestock trophies are now ordered. They're not made yet, but they're ordered. And I also make the purple velvet champion blankets for the sheep, goats, swine. And this year we're doing a little champion banner for the turkey. You should come down there Thursday afternoon between 3 and 5. Turkeys don't pose very well, but anyway, we're trying to take pictures of the exhibitor and the turkey, and now we're going to have a banner that somebody's going to have to hold too, so that should be interesting. But I just wanted you to know what it is we're doing and where our money goes. The Junior Livestock Auction Committee is actually a committee of the Fair Board. Ron Hamilton is a member of that committee also.
Ed Orford.
I'm not sure who else is here.
Ed Orford.
Eddie's here? Okay. And Missy Marino has been coming to those meetings. So, but the Small Livestock Association is actually a separate nonprofit, not part of the fair, but what we do is support the fair. So I'm happy to be here.
Great, thank you.
Hi, Tony Wagner, former board member. Last week I spoke to one of the county board of supervisors, and he told me the last couple nights in the paper, the articles about what's going on, and just want to speak to that a little bit. I'm glad the board of supervisors stepped up to support the fair. It only makes sense. I'm disappointed the city of Sonora didn't want to step up, but that's what that is. I can't say. But their proposal of the committee being a supervisor, city council, state official, local business, and local ag, I think we need to go a little step further. I think it needs to be more like one member of the staff of the fair, one fair board member, one livestock, one FFA, one 4-H, one county schools, and one event promoter. Those are the people that are using the fair. So just a recommendation of that. They have participated in the fair and they've gone through the process. So some of these other people are just more officials that really don't know what's going on. So I'd rather see something within the fair if that happens. I appreciate their support and acknowledgement of how important the fair and fairgrounds are to this county. And if Ms. Dodge does resign, which we hope not, I would hope the process to find a replacement would include some of these community members and not just the board. It just makes sense. I question a member of the city council suggesting the county look into acquiring the state-owned fairgrounds. At what end, I don't know. It's an attractive piece of property, and yes, I'm sure many things can be done with it, but it should remain as it is, the fairgrounds. I'll get to that in a minute. And we have tried to acquire more property, like across the street at the CAL FIRE office, and the state doesn't want to sell any property, so odds are that'll never happen. So I have to agree with Ms. Dodge's statement, centered around the director's focus on expenses and procedures as opposed to generating income. When the state money was lost, the board worked together to get Measure C passed. It didn't. Joe Sperania wrote a book. I mean, he actually wrote a book to sell about the fair. Stacy's son designed a belt buckle to sell for the fair. Marge and I started Friends of the Fair up again, which has done an excellent job. They made us get off because we were on the fair board, so we couldn't be part of it. So it's not like as you guys call the old board, didn't do anything. Finance renewal was the main concern, picking up new sponsors and community partners. And finally, I'm concerned about the influence certain board members have on the selection of new members of the board. Not all, but some. There have been statements bragging that she was personally appointed by the governor. I still have influence in Sacramento, and the appointment secretary has been a close friend of mine for 40 years. Marge is still sitting, her board renewal is still sitting on the governor's desk, as she's been told several times. He's considering it, and I'm wondering, she's still sitting here too. Why is the governor considering it? People in the audience have applied for the board and have been told they're being considered also. I have reapplied. I'm sure that just sticks a knife into everybody's gall because I have reapplied. But we just got to do that. So I would ask, because of this unconscionable, well, and I guess we know that because Shelley stood up last month and said that she was asked to be on the board by a certain person on the board. Because of this unconscionable use of influence, I would ask Peggy Lee to resign and for Stacy Dodge to rescind her resignation as CEO and manager of the Mother Lode Fair.
Are there any others that wish to speak?
I'm Ed Orbert, member of the Livestock Auction Committee, friends of very many of these people. I'd like to show you something. This is a state employee ID badge. Now, you're appointed by the state, by the governor, so I assume that's by the state. Now, in any state agency, hostile work environments, harassment in the workplace, any of that is not allowed. It is zero tolerance. If I was to go into work and yell at an employee because I didn't like how things were going, or I didn't like how he did things, they would come to me. It's zero tolerance. I have no speculation. No, there's nothing I can do. I can get fired. I don't understand how any of you, which those of you that have done it know who you are, how you can go in and yell at anybody in that office, how you can go and yell at anybody in the yard, how you can yell at anybody on these grounds, how you can go in and try to change the things that are being changed, that you want changed. You can't do it. If it causes a hostile work environment, it is against state policy and you can get fired, and I don't understand how you're still on the board. I do not. I'd like to welcome the new board members. I'm sorry you came into a storm of hysteria, but I have the utmost confidence in Stacy. She was voted in by this board. She has taken over and carried this fair on with no money, with none. And the office staff, Michelle, well, not my entire life, but 30 plus years. Extremely competent. She's run her own businesses. She's done all kinds of things. I can't understand how anyone would even question the office staff. And I was here 2 months ago, and I told you, you're going to start something that's going to end this fair, and I am scared to death for that, because I'm in this fair for the kids. I'm not in it for me. I'm way above and beyond and way past that. But the kids, that's what the fair is for. And if the kids can't have the fair, then why are we here? You know, if we want to fight amongst each other, you know, I mean, it makes no sense. And to try to run down the fair, or run down management, or any of the office staff or the yard staff, I mean, it makes no sense. You are an advisory committee. That's all you are. You should never, ever come into that office with any kind of an attitude, you should call and say, hey, we need to have a discussion, make an appointment. I can't walk in the office and see any of them. And I am on a board too. But I can't just walk in there and you know, hey, Stacy, I don't like this, and I don't like that. Michelle, you're doing this wrong. You can't do that kind of stuff. You make the rules, you see what happens, and if the rules are broke, you bring that up. And you bring it up here at your meeting. That's where you bring them up. And as far as the finance committee, I am not happy with that at all. Because there's a member on your finance committee that was accused and caught of embezzling money. And why they're on there, I have no idea. That just blows my mind. It's insane. It really is. And why they're on this committee, I don't know. They should get off, go away, and be done. So, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Ron Hamilton. I'm from Tuolumne. I'm a member of the Junior Livestock Auction Committee. I just want to say I know there's many different facets of this fair, but I participate in one that serves the kids, because to me that's the important part, is the kids. And it's hard for me to go explain to those kids what they're hearing in the news media of what's going on with this fair. They don't understand why people like Stacy are being mistreated by a group of people who are supposed to be supportive. The divisions that have been caused by this board and this community runs long and deep. And a simple apology does not always fix it. You need to consider your actions, your comments, and your deeds. If staying on this board is going to continue to cause division in this community, it's time for you to step down. That's all I have to say.
Hi, my name is Herman Eaton. I own Clink Electric. I've been in the community since 1976. And I also realize that when you have management that's not getting along, when you have a business, I don't care what it is, I don't know if it's a baseball team, sport team, if there's trouble at the top, it's going to trickle down to the bottom. Eventually, it's going to affect every part of the fair itself. And management is very important. When you have a good manager, it's like a manager on a baseball team. If you have a good team, you're going to win. If you don't, you don't. In the 80s, I can remember one time that the auction at the fair was basically going under. It was not being supported. At that point, there was a group, people came together and rallied behind themselves, and we were in Rotary at that time. Our Rotary Club was part of that. And so was Joe Martin and Joyce. And they rallied around and actually saved the fair, the auction, for the high school kids. And ultimately, that's what you're here for. It's for the people and the kids and that part of the auction. And I would hate to think that you have a self-agenda, someone here has a self-agenda that would threaten that. Because that's very important. And I'd hate to see us lose that. And I believe we're in danger of doing that right now. I think we're on a slippery slope. And we've had problems before with our fair. That's why the posse grounds are out there where they're at today. That's all history, part of our history. I would hope that you could come up with a good working plan, and those people who don't feel that they fit should walk away with dignity. And I hope it's not Stacy. I got to say.
My name is Jim Costello. I participated in the fair as an entry, as a judge, as a volunteer. The company that I used to work for was Fiberboard Wood Products, and Sierra Pacific Industries have supported the fair through the livestock auction for 30, 40 years that I know of. There's a lot of points been made. Most of them are right on. Not going to repeat them, but I'm going to say something that hasn't been said yet. And that is that you have an executive in Stacy who gets part-time wages, who is a full-time person. In her heart, in her head, she's 100% fair. And knows people, gets things done, understands how the community works. Can you think how you're going to replace that job? Can you just imagine how are you going to get the quality, the talent, the experience, the commitment to the community, giving somebody a part-time job? It ain't going to work. You need to figure out how to keep Stacy. Whatever it takes. She earns the right to have another chance at this. Talk her out of her resignation if you have to. I've tried. She needs to hear it from you. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good evening, Sherry Brennan, Tuolumne County Supervisor for District 1. And I just did want to let the board know that we had an agenda item on our agenda yesterday to have correspondence to the governor and looking for some solutions. That item was tabled for the sole purpose of allowing the city to revisit that conversation. Councilwoman Connie Williams was at our meeting. She was representing herself personally and not the city, but she requested our board to table that item for 2 weeks so that the city could have the opportunity to have more time to look at the letter. I really want to emphasize the county's concern. This facility is very important to the county. It is our major evacuation center, and it is also what we believe a cornerstone in our economic activity for Tuolumne County. So there are really dual functions, and as supervisors, there has been such a level of outreach from both citizens and our business community that we felt compelled to move on this item. I would also state that the Chamber of Commerce and the Sierra Business Council were both there and supported this action. And I had a call from the Farm Bureau last night, and they are also in support of this action. So I just wanted, as a courtesy, to let you know that we have that agenda item and that it will be coming back to our board in 2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Okay, not seeing anyone else. I would like to move on. At this time, I am going to change the order of business. We're going to go to old business. Our auditor is here, and he needs to leave as soon as possible. So we're going to go to old business, and we'll do old business A. Bob Huff?
Yeah, well, Dan, you have correspondence to read first.
Does that need to be first? I can change it anytime I want.
Oh, I just thought that you were gonna go from the consent calendar to correspondence.
Well, he's up here now, let's do it.
Yeah, that's fine.
My name is Bob Haff. I am one of the partners of the firm Carlson Haff and Associates. I have been involved in auditing the financial statements of the fair for the year 2014. That seems a little bit late, and it is a little bit, but an audit is necessary to try to set the groundwork for finances of the organization, to show that your financial position is, as it was stated in your general ledger and financial statements, as presented by the California Fair Services Authority, who does most of the accounting for the fair. I don't know how much of a background you have in auditing, if you've ever been through an audit, and I don't mean the IRS, I'm talking about the financial statement audit. But as part of an audit, I'm required by our professional standards to evaluate internal control of your organization. And that's not so that I render an opinion on how effective those controls are. That is so that I can tailor my testing that I do in the audit scenario, in my position as auditor. I can reduce the amount of testing that I can do if I feel that I can rely on internal controls. That being said, I feel like the internal controls for cash disbursements, they're the best that I've seen in any audit that I have performed to date. And I've been doing this for, well, since 2001, so it's 15 years. I did not find one item in my internal control testing of cash disbursements that was off. So that being said, when you look at audited financial statements, what the fair is looking for is what's called the auditor's opinion or report. The most desirable report is unqualified. We do qualify opinions if we find certain items that are not quite right. That being said, in this particular instance, we did qualify our opinion for the valuation of your fixed assets. That's based on information that you basically inherited. It's nothing that happened from people who are sitting on this board right now, or Stacy or Michelle. They had nothing to do with the condition of these records. But what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to give a wake-up call that these records need to be fixed. This was a first-time audit for me of this fair. In a first-time audit, I'm required by our professional standards to do observation of your fixed assets. And what I found was that we could not determine what fixed assets really existed and what didn't exist. The valuations have been there in some cases since the 30s, and they're there since the 50s. There are assets that no longer exist that have never been taken off of your fixed asset schedule. So, that being said, that's why the qualified opinion was rendered. And again, I'll emphasize that it's through no fault of the people that are sitting here. So basically, I'm looking at what's called a balance sheet at this point. Fair has just a little over $190,000 in cash. That includes the junior livestock auction account. Land and buildings, the land is set. That's $239,000. The buildings and equipment is where the problem is. And that net value is $874,494. But that's subject to change when these assets are evaluated. Payables, those are amounts that are owed to outside vendors. They could be somebody who provided you with utilities, could be garbage service, it could be any type of service or bill, office supplies, it could be staples. The reserve for the junior livestock auction at this point stands at $27,339. The unrestricted net resources are $141,000. Now, if you're familiar with a basic corporation accounting, when I say unrestricted net resources, that's the same as stockholders' equity. That's your retained earnings. This year, the financial statements show that the revenues stood at a little over $500,000, over $500,000 in total. Expenditures total $573,661. That generated a loss. But the majority reason for that loss is depreciation. Depreciation is not a real cash asset. That's an accounting term. That's how you measure your fixed assets being used up. That's how you gauge what you have and what you're using. Because this building that we're in right now gets depreciated every year. Because eventually you're going to have to fix something. You're going to have to replace the roof. You're going to have to do many different things. So that's what depreciation is, but it does not take away from your cash flow. So the net resources this includes capital assets, junior livestock auction, and unrestricted net assets at the end of 2014 stood at $1,282,655. One of the required statements in a audited financial statements is called a statement of cash flows. This is kind of counterintuitive from your regular financial statements because what it's looking at is changes in assets and liabilities. The starting point is your net loss, and then we look at what changed for accounts receivable. Did they increase? Did they decrease? Accounts payable, did they increase? Did they decrease? If accounts payable decreased, then you have negative cash flow because you paid more money out. If your accounts payable increase, you have positive cash flow. That's why I say it seems counterintuitive, because it seems like a good thing to pay your accounts payable down. But if you're in a cash flow situation, then maybe that's not such a good thing. Maybe you go out to the extent of your terms to make your payments. And then there's changes in vacation accruals. And we have to, the fair has to accrue a liability for vacation time earned by its employees, so that you can see what kind of liability is out there if somebody is going to leave the employment of a fair. That vacation time is going to have to be paid out. If you ask a CPA, probably the most important part of financial statements are the notes. Because when you look at the actual numbers on the balance sheet, the income statement, and the statement of retained earnings or cash flow statement, they're numbers. When you go into the notes to the financial statement, it gives a little further definition of what those numbers mean. There is an item called estimates in here, and one of the biggest estimates that you make is depreciation. That's all it is an estimate. This building is required to be depreciated over 30 years. That's an estimate. It could last 40, it could last 50. You might have a tornado and it gets knocked down tomorrow and you have a big loss. And you lose the actual life of the building, and then you would have to rebuild it. When the California Department of Food and Agriculture decided that it was going to be okay for the fairs to go out to outsource their financial statement evaluation. By that, I'm talking about audits like I performed, or reviews, which is another form of financial statement attestation that we do. They asked us to provide them with schedules of aged account receivables. So you'll see additional schedules that's called supplemental information. And the schedule of accounts payable. And then there's a schedule of ratios, which, if you look at it, the current ratio, which takes your current liabilities and you divide that into your current assets, which is your cash and your accounts receivable and your prepaid assets. And it tells you how many times you can pay your liabilities with your cash. And in the case of the fair in 2014, that was 6.3 times. That's a pretty good ratio. There's a lot of companies that can't do that. That's all I had. If you have any questions.
You also, on your
paperwork that you sent to, or we got in the email, you also wrote up the junior livestock auction for never being balanced?
I can't say never being balanced. I'm saying in 2014 it was not.
In 2005, we got written, did you look at the older,
There were, I did look at the items that you provided to me.
I didn't provide them to you.
Well,
Fair.
you brought them up in the first meeting that we got together to coordinate the audit. Those items were 11, and some of them were from 1997, so they're almost 20 years old. So I chose to go to the CDFA audit department, and I asked for their most current items. In 2009, there was a listing of corrective items. A lot of them are mechanical, procedural. You should have filled this form out, you should have filled that form out. Those were in 2009. The state came back in 2011, and there were no corrective action items in 2011, none. So, to me, as an auditor, if there isn't a follow-up item that says that there's still something that has to be fixed, it doesn't really have to be fixed.
So in your write-up, does it have to be fixed this year?
My write-up this year, what I see in the junior livestock auction, because I'm also looking at 2015.
Right.
And in 2015, that's the review that we just got started on. In 2015, all of the transactions for the junior livestock auction occurred within the same year. What happened in 2014 was you ended up with a very large receivable, and that receivable is from Umpqua Bank, who acts as the agent for the junior livestock auction.
Right.
They handle all the cash, all the transactions. So, but when I originally started the audit, that amount was well over $14,000. I said, there's something off here. So it made me really delve into the junior livestock auction. And what we found was there were pieces of information that the fair was not receiving to be communicated to CFSA, which is the Fair Services Authority, so that they could account for it properly. There are credit card charges, there are check fees, there were actually some bounce check fees, insufficient funds, very minimal. But nobody was aware of those fees in prior years. And until we actually started to, I have to give Stacy a compliment, because every time that I came back to her with a question, she went to find the answer. She went to get the information that I was looking for. And in the end, we got it. It took a week and a half.
So that's been taken care of?
That's been taken care of. We found the items. They have been adjusted in the financial statements that you see. The accounts receivable number that's on for the JLA on the balance sheet is only the amount due from Umpqua Bank that was received in May of 2015.
So all your write-up here, the fair should request an invoice from the vendors that process the animals sold at the auction listing?
Yes.
The gross amount, that's all done?
That is a recommendation for future. That's
So-
not going back to 2014.
Oh, I understand that. So
That's
we
water
need
under
to
the
do
bridge.
that.
Yes.
Okay, so
You-
these recommendations need to be done, I guess that's my question.
Yes.
The ones you've written up need to be done.
Yes.
So you have a recommendation on the JLA, you have a recommendation on accounts receivable. And then I asked you earlier,
Mhm.
so if you were representing the fair as a accountant, not an auditor, one of the finance committee's problems is we don't know at any certain time how much we have in accounts receivable, or accounts payable. I will give you an example. we owe you money.
Mhm.
We signed a contract with you. In a real business world, as we both said earlier, that would be put in your accounts payable when you owe the money.
Mhm.
None of our things are in accounts payable. Our contracts for the fair, your fee. So it skews how much money we really have. And that's the concern of the fiscal, or the financial committee. And I think you, not as an auditor, but as someone representing a business firm, would be concerned with that too.
From the standpoint of whether you're doing accrual or cash accounting,
And it says we should be doing accrual.
it says on page 9 of the accounting procedures manual that you are supposed to be on accrual accounting. That's true. However, if you go back and you read further back in the manual, it does state that the fair operates on a cash basis throughout the year, and at the end of the year, it has to make the best effort possible to determine payables and to determine receivables.
I thought it just said receivables in our
Well,
conversation.
it says receivables, but if you went and you accrued all your payables and didn't accrue receivables, you aren't matching your income to your expenses, so your view is going to be more skewed than it was before.
But why wouldn't you want to know exactly where you are? Wouldn't the fair board want to know where they are at any certain time? We're responsible for it. Shouldn't we know where we are? Wouldn't you, as a businessman, want to know where you are?
Well, those items are in the
Yeah.
budget.
They are.
I agree they're in the budget. Absolutely, they're in the budget. So if you took the budget
Mhm.
and put it in where we are now, and what we brought in and what's going out,
Mhm.
we probably don't have any money.
Well, as I understand it, when you are evaluating your finances, you're looking at budget versus actual every month. You're evaluating your meetings, and where does that fall?
Well, we have the problem of things are miscategorized, and Missy, you
It
and I have been
doesn't
working on that.
change the bottom line.
It does change the bottom line because you have attendings, exhibits, you have different categories. It's like grant accounting, let's put it that way. So you have different categories you put it in. So you really want to know if you're spending all your money that you have budgeted for exhibit, if you want to spend all your money for attendance, if you want to spend all your money for whatever categories you have in your budget. You really should know where you are at any time, and it really is important when you go to do your budget for the next year.
That's correct.
Yeah, I know I
That's
am.
correct. But that being said, the budget tells you it's the best estimate that the board could come up with, the finance committee and the board.
Right.
Budget was approved by the board. The budget says the fair should bring in this much money.
That's right.
If you are looking at those expenses that have been committed to in contract, and you're accruing all those without accruing, I mean, you would have to accrue your income from the fair, what you project that you're going to, but it's what you project, and it's not real until you actually do the sales,
Absolutely.
until
But the
you've
ex-
earned it. That's
but the
exactly it.
expenses are real.
That's exactly it.
But the expenses are real.
The expenses are real, that's correct. But then there's also a timeline when they're due.
Absolutely. Absolutely,
Okay.
and if you
So-
took that, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, we started the budget in a deficit position. The budget wasn't balanced. It exceeded, expenses exceeded revenue, as I recall. Does anybody else remember? Did it hit you? Because we made a thing of trying to get a balanced budget, and we didn't get a balanced budget. So in our budget that we approved, and California Department of Aging says it's okay, we've been told, our expenditures exceeded our income. So at first, you start out in a deficit position. Do we agree with that?
I don't think that's correct.
And we were trying to be conservative in our estimates of income. You know, things can change. The budget is just the guideline. We're
That's
going to do our
absolutely right.
best,
That's
you know?
absolutely
FSA
right.
would not have let us have a deficit and have it approved on our stop report.
Okay, I'm not talking about the stop report. I'm
No, I
talking about
know,
the
but
budget.
when we go through our budget, those figures carry forward.
I think we have the budget, and I don't.
So,
Okay,
I'm new,
Yes.
but I don't know all the background of all of this. And the one positive thing that I see on your condensed opinion is when you say we became aware of matters that are opportunities for strengthening internal controls and increasing operating efficiency. I love that. I mean, it's just, to me, that's positive. You have 4 items on here that seem to me to be very fixable, very easily. So I don't understand what they're saying about all this other stuff, but I think what you have proven tonight, basically, is that we're technically in a pretty good position as far as our staff doing their job. Am I correct in that?
I think your staff is doing an excellent job with the tools that are provided to them and the hours that they're allowed to work. Because to maintain that budget and to try to keep those expenses down, Stacy's on part-time. She gets paid for 16 hours a week and she's here for at least 40. Michelle is full-time, I believe. I mean, you've been here every time I've come in, so. But so is Stacy. And then there's one other person who works in the office who is named Kathy, and she's part-time also.
It just seems to me that
Yeah.
your recommendations seem very realistic.
I try to keep them within the realm of possibility, shall we say. Something that you can do. Now, we may get into something in the review for 2015 to where I make a different recommendation. I feel that my job as an auditor is to come in here as a consultant. I'm also an auditor, though. I have to look at things with professional skepticism and say, does this work? Are the numbers, I won't say correct, but they're materially correct. I can't say that every number in there is exact because, as we know, CFSA does the best with what they get. They get faxed copies of invoices that they input into the accounting system, and then they generate the checks for those payments, and then they get sent back to Stacy for review and signing those checks to pay the bills. The office does not input the accounts
We've
payable.
always been told they do.
They do not.
We code them.
They code them, they don't put them into the system. That's what one of the previous administrations back, I believe, 4 or 5 years ago,
Since 12.
since 12, they were controlling everything, and they put everything into your accounting system back then. Everything has been transferred to CFSA.
We've been told by Renee, who is CSFA, that she downloads our accounting system between the 5th and the 10th of the month, that everything's in there by then. So that's kind of a different,
The stuff that
Those are for the
Michelle
financials.
does put in. But as far as payables go, Michelle and Kathy do not input the payables.
So what you're thinking of is the financials are generated at that point in time. We've gone over the process several times as far as what we do in our office and then sending them to Renee. for processing. Actually, they go to Sharon for processing.
Just for information, I have the budget in front of me, and we did pass an unbalanced budget by $15,000, $16,000. Okay.
That's with depreciation added into that.
That, without depreciation, it was $64,000. The depreciation was $64,000. We had 60-something thousand dollars difference in income and expenses. The expenses exceeded income. And I agree, we were very cautious on our income, hoping it would increase, but we did pass an unbalanced budget.
And we did in 2015 also.
Okay, at this time, Bob has agreed to meet with the board later, and I would like the board to give me some dates that you're available so I can pass them on to Bob, so that we can go over in more detail his findings. Okay? Is that okay with the board?
May I comment briefly while you're on the
Certainly.
line? I would just like to say I've been involved with the auction committee for 20 years. For years and years, clear back to Jan's days, we had asked for an accounting of our contingency fund. Never got it. We were given every excuse why we didn't get it. And I just want to say that just recently, Stacy came to our meeting, gave us a very detailed account, and she's kept it current for us and kept in communication with us. So I would like to commend her for that and thank her for doing that.
Okay. Okay? Thank you.
Are we going to discuss B, discussion and review?
No,
as well?
B will not be discussed because it is not ready to be discussed. The accountant has not finished his review of 2015. He needed to do 2014 before he could move on to 2015.
I'd like to comment on this item. My name is Rick Dodge. I'm Stacy's husband, so it would be easy for you to dismiss me as being biased about what I'm about to say, but I can assure you I'm qualified to say what I'm about to say. I haven't seen the financial statements or the management letter or the recommendations, but there's a couple of things that need to be emphasized from what I heard Mr. Half just say. First of all, cash management practice is the best of any audit that he's ever seen. No exception, none. Well, perhaps there was one small one, okay? As far as the opinion, if I understand what he said correctly, part of that is because there were some fixed assets that were listed that no longer exist. Not saying that that's a good thing, it's not, and I believe it is reason to issue a qualified opinion, but I must say it's probably a very soft qualified opinion as far as qualified opinions go. I've seen the fair's financial statements, and just about everything was completely depreciated as of at least a year ago. I will venture to say that the assets that no longer exist have been completely depreciated for years, if not decades. Therefore, on the face of the financial statements, the fact that those are still listed on the register, but they are also fully depreciated, is not going to affect by $1 your total assets, your total liabilities. It's not going to affect your net worth. It's not going to affect your net income, okay? And most importantly, it's not going to affect your cash. So again, I agree that that's something that should be done, but it is not, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge issue for qualifying opinion. And I just know it's going to happen. I'm just going to say it right here. It's going to be very disingenuous if any of you guys think that it is, or start telling the public that it's a serious major exception. And of course, as he mentioned, it happened before Stacy's watch. Let's see a couple other things that I noted that he said. The state does do the accounting. The state does input the codes from, I believe, Kathy and Michelle. I'm sure the state often occasionally questions the account assignment of expenses. He did not mention how material that was. I'm betting it's not that material, but I don't know if you want to answer that now. That's important to keep in mind as well. And then, you know, Director Lee, you keep on doubling down on your knowledge of accounting and finance. I don't know why it's so difficult for you to understand that you do not record an account payable until the expense has incurred. Just because you've signed a contract with a vendor does not mean that you've incurred that expense. Not until that service or good has been provided to the fair does that payable get recorded. Same thing with revenue. You do not record an accrual for revenue until you've earned that revenue. Now, if it's a big, big accrual, then a lot of private companies do that. But as Mr. Hath mentioned, the state doesn't require that. Cash basis during the year, accruals at the end of the year. And from what I heard, what I gathered, and like I said, I would love to see the management letter as well as the financial statements. But from what I heard, staff is doing it correctly. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I will read correspondence. This was received June 21st. It's unsigned.
Can you speak up?
Sorry?
Can you speak up?
Somerville, everything.
Well, it's unsigned. I do not know who it comes from.
That's why I'm telling you.
Well, it's unsigned, so as far as it goes, it's unsigned, okay?
It was the email.
Thank you. Thank you for taking time to listen to my letter. My name is Rochelle Castangia, terrible with names, and I'm the ag teacher at Somerville High School. I am currently away at an ag teachers conference, otherwise I would be here in person. First, I want to thank the new board members for their time and service. Also, huge thanks and gratitude to Stacy Dodge for her dedication to serve our community as our fair board manager. I am truly sorry that you and your office staff had to endure the torment and ill treatment you did from certain board members. A fair board represents a community, and our community is deeply rooted in agriculture and tradition, and a value system based